As much as I love chilling and relaxing with games, sometimes it's the challenge that really lets the gameplay shine. If all your foes pass out at the mere sight of you, are you really all that engaged? A little friction can be a good thing, and sometimes you want to have to work for your reward. It definitely makes it taste sweeter when you finally get your grubby mitts on it. My name's Brandon, and these are 5 of the hardest RPGs I've played in no particular order. Let's get into it. Kicking things off with a bang, we have the infamous Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne. Originally released on the PlayStation 2, it has since seen an HD remaster for more modern platforms with some quality of life improvements, including more difficulty settings. I played the PlayStation 2 version, and yeah, this game can be pretty mean on the normal difficulty level. There's no hand-holding here whatsoever. It might start off relatively manageable, but once you get to a certain boss, it's not that far into the game. If your experience is anything like mine was, you will get ground into a fine paste repeatedly. Nocturne demands that you master its systems, memorize enemy weaknesses and strengths, and prepare accordingly. Thankfully, the battle system is among the best out there in turn-based JRPGs, and though it might be rough at times, this makes it one of the most rewarding as well. Your victories are not an accident. You came out on top because you set yourself up for success with hard work and smart planning. Outside of the Shin Megami Tensei series, there's not much like this out there. And even having played Shin Megami Tensei 4 and 5, I still look back with an intense fondness for Nocturne. Truly an unforgettable experience. Next, we have Outward, available on most modern platforms. I do play Western RPGs from time to time to push out of my comfort zone, and Outward is a wonderful example of why that's so important. It was made by a pretty small team, so you might notice the occasional lack of polish here and there, but this is a case where it all comes together so well that it doesn't matter. Outward is a real-time action RPG with survival mechanics mixed in. You have to eat, drink, and sleep. Consequence is a major element in most areas of the gameplay. Need to cure yourself of some sort of malady? I hope you have the right tea or ingredients on you. Sprinting through a new dungeon without a care in the world? Time to learn about hubris. Outward provides a lot of options for character builds, and it's up to you to make the most of your choices. I leaned pretty heavily into magic, and while that let me do a lot of cool stuff like place magical mines and summon a powerful sword, it also meant that I had to sacrifice a fair amount of my HP permanently. You have to choose how you want to balance HP and MP. If you shift most of your points into MP, you're not going to be able to take many hits, and evading is not always the easiest thing to do. Did I mention there's a stamina gauge? No infinite dodge rolls here. Think through your strategy before engaging with your enemies, watch your distance, and remember that there's no shame in falling back. Survival is everything. Moving on, we have Bravely Default 2, and it makes the list for one reason only: the bosses. Just like the original Bravely Default, the job system is a core part of Bravely Default 2. For most enemy encounters, you can make it work with whatever jobs you happen to be leveling up at the time. When it comes to the bosses though, that all goes out the window. I made it through very few bosses on my first attempt, and in many of these cases, I lost only after a long, grueling war of attrition. Some bosses just keep healing. Over and over. You rarely have the option of simply outlasting the boss. First things first, you need to get your jobs in order. Some jobs are better than others for certain bosses, and you don't have the luxury of wasting turns with jobs that aren't pulling their weight. You have to go in with a plan and pay close attention to the very end. They can easily turn the tables on you, undoing several turns worth of work. I ended up finding one core strategy that worked pretty well, and I relied on that heavily for the rest of the playthrough. It was nothing fancy. It was basically to go nuclear with an appropriate job class as frequently as possible until the boss died. That's not to say that it always worked on the first try, but it was usually some variation of that. The longer it took, the greater the danger of failure. Next, the lovely Valkyrie profile, from a time when game design was far more obtuse and averse to handholding. I have to confess that I only recently finished this game for the first time, and it's largely thanks to the quality of life changes introduced in the release of Valkyrie Profile Lenneth on PS4. Let's just say I made the most of the save states and rewind function. I had fun, and that's all that matters. Without these quality of life changes, Valkyrie Profile doesn't do much of anything to help you along. It's up to you to figure out how to take advantage of the different mechanics through experimentation and trial and error. Save points can be pretty spread out, so I took heavy advantage of the rewind function at times when I wanted to experiment. The original PlayStation version and the PSP version did not have these fancy functions. So if you encountered an enemy that could wipe your entire party in a turn or two, too bad, so sad, game over. The battle system is no piece of cake, but what really puts Valkyrie Profile on this list for me is how so many of the powerful items are hidden behind hidden mechanics. You could very easily go through the entire game without ever seeing some of the items you need to unlock some of the more powerful equipment options, without which later battles could be a serious struggle. I like playing my games without guides most of the time, but for this one, I'll make an exception. I recommend peeking at a guide occasionally to help yourself power up. Lastly, Final Fantasy Tactics: The War of the Lions for the PSP. This is the only game on this list that I have not finished. SRPGs tend to be tougher for me, and I had no clue what I was doing with this one. As far as this list goes, this is the one that got away. I love the art style and all the different jobs to choose from. But wow, I could not get anywhere. I played a little over 10 hours, and most of that was grinding to try to help me push through a couple walls I hit. Just thinking about it makes me want to give it another shot. I can see the potential here, if only I could get a better grasp on it. It's pretty rare for me to come across a game that I just cannot get through no matter what I try, but after a number of frustrating losses, I set it down one day and never went back. Sometimes that's how it goes. I still look back on it fondly, albeit with a little frustration mixed in, because I really did want to be one of those people who can't stop telling the world how great it is. But I couldn't cut it, and that's that. I moved on. Who knows? Maybe I'd have a better time of it if I gave it another shot now. What did you think of my picks? If you're ever in the mood for something on the more challenging side, maybe something that will grind you into the ground, give these a look. You might find a new favorite among them. Before you go, let me know your pick for hardest RPG in the comments. Remember to subscribe for more and to give the video a like to tell the world there's value here. Now go find some fun. Peace.